UFC 280 is fast approaching. I want to deep dive into this high-powered main card, as well as deep dive into these fighters on the prelims that you better not take your eyes off of. I'm Kairos, and it's the right time and the right place. First things first, shout out to MMA Diver. I appreciate you for sharing your platform with me. It is greatly appreciated. Moving on, however, let's talk about this main event right now. I keep hearing people say that Makhachev has only lost once in MMA. I'm gonna tell you this right now. If you're saying that, you don't know much about it. You don't know much about it right off rip. Look at that man's haircut and what his barber puts him through. You're gonna tell me he's not taking more than one loss? Come on. Let's do better. Let's be better. Okay, that was disrespectful. From here on out, I'm gonna be as unbiased as possible. I promise. I promise. When we look at Charles Oliveira's body of work, this man has beaten 4, probably 3 guaranteed Hall of Famers in this last 5 stretch, which is impressive. The only person who might be a toss-up is Michael Chandler because he doesn't have the body of work in the UFC to put him in the Hall of Fame. But nonetheless, it is an incredible feat, and almost all of those fights are via finish. He's looked almost unbeatable. You know what? I'm gonna just say, he's looked unbeatable. Now, when we look conversely at Makhachev's body of work, there's a lot of questions and a lot of things that people are not happy about, namely his strength of schedule. But I'm going to be honest with you for a second. He has a tough time finding opponents. He's a stylistic nightmare for a lot of people. So when you have slim pickings of who wants to fight you, and then when you have these fights with people, they fall through because people get injured and you're taking opponents on short notice, what more can you do? The Bobby Green fight was a short notice fight. He did what he was supposed to do. The Dan Hooker fight, I believe, was short notice as well. He did what he had to do. What more can he prove if there's not opponents in front of him to test his mettle against and show you guys just the caliber of fighter he is? If you're going out here saying that Charles has beaten tougher competition, yes, that's facts. And if you're out here discrediting Makhachev as a fighter based off of that, I think you're already off to a bad start. When we look at his colleagues, a lot of people are picking against them. Overwhelming, so it's not just the fans, but the odds makers seem to know that this fight's pretty close, which is very rare because a lot of these odds makers suck at what they do if we're just gonna keep it a buck. However, I think one X factor that we have got to pay attention to is the fact that both these guys have been scheduled to go 5 rounds and neither one of them have gone the full distance. Cardio is always a factor in every single fight, and absolutely the case in a championship caliber fight because there's more than just fights on the line. You're here fighting for a world title. You're here in front of the limelight. You're the main event. There's so many things that drain on you and that weigh on you. Gun to my head right now, who am I picking? I have got to go with Charles. And I know right now, if Islam comes in and beats Charles, y'all are gonna be hitting me in my DMs on Twitter. Hit me in the comments of this, you idiot, you dummy, all this talk about Islam being that great, you still picked against. Yes, I picked against them. Yes, I picked against them. What are you gonna do about it? That's what I did. What do you want from me? What do you want from me? Next up, we got another title on the line. Aljamain Sterling versus TJ Dillashaw. I am puzzled with picking this fight because I have a serious conflict of interest. I like Aljamain Sterling, but I also acknowledge that TJ Dillashaw is one of my favorite bantamweights of all time, bar none. One thing I can't ignore, though, is that every single time Aljamain has stepped out there, he's leveled up leaps and bounds. Look at the way he fought Piotr Yan in the first fight versus the second fight. Every single question that we had, every single doubt that we had within him, he answered. And whether you think Piotr won, whether you think Aljamain lost, does not matter because at the end of the day, he still has his title and he improved greatly between those 2 fights. That's one thing that you can't ignore. He was better with his output. He was better with his control. He was better on all fronts. For him to level up in that time, I can't ignore that. And one thing that bothers me about TJ is his skill has seemed to deteriorate from his time off because of his USADA suspension, as well as him recovering back. We have to think about this. He's getting up there in age. My man is almost pushing 40. And another health factor we have to take into account for TJ is he's coming off another serious surgery following his Corey Sandhagen win. A lot of people think that he didn't win that fight, and I'm gonna be honest with you. He was able to continuously get Corey's back, but I feel like you have to do a little bit more to guarantee your win, but he got it, and I'm not mad at it. Like I said, I'm a fan of TJ. This fight legitimately has me puzzled, though. I don't really have a confident pick, but I have to go with Aljamain just because of momentum, based off the fact that he's leveling up and he's entering his prime, if not in his prime. TJ, we understand with age comes deterioration, and he's on a downward trajectory. I can't in good conscience pick him. TJ loyalists out there, I'm sorry, I betrayed the group, I betrayed the fan club. I can't come to the cookout anymore. whatever. It is what it is. Speaking of Petr Yan, we have his fight against Sean O'Malley. Well, let me talk to you about something right now. I respect Petr 1,000,000% for this fight. Do you want to know why? Because it's high risk, no reward whatsoever. He gets absolutely nothing for beating Sean. Maybe some new fans, maybe some more exposure, but that's about it. People aren't going to look at this fight and say, wow, Sean O'Malley. Well, if you have some common sense, you're not going to sit here and watch Sean and say, wow, Sean is a legitimate top 3, top 5 fighter in the division. He simply is not. Bantamweight is a very deep division, so it's not a knock on his abilities. He's just young, and I think that a lot of people confuse his hype and popularity with his actual skill set and ability. We saw what happened when fighters are not afraid or in fear of his feints, and that's exactly what I'm gonna get into right now. Do you remember Sean's fight with Chris Moutinho a few months back, and everyone was talking about how great he looks, which he did, but in that fight I realized that there are some serious weaknesses in his game. Yes, I'm pulling the Kevin Lee, I see the holes in his game.
It's good, it's obviously very good, but I can see a lot of holes.
With all the volume that he was able to land on Chris, he still couldn't get him out of there. It was basically the ref saying, all right, I've seen enough, even though there's 10 seconds left, I'm gonna stop the fight right now. Legitimately, he should have just let the last 2 seconds roll off the clock. If he allowed him to absorb that much damage throughout the whole fight, should have just let him make it to the final bell. At a certain level, if you were putting on that much volume on someone, it's your duty to get him out of there, especially when you have that large of a differential in your abilities. How can you dispute that? And what was one thing that Chris was able to do against Sean during that time? He was able to walk through strikes and not be deterred by the feints. Although he didn't understand how to correctly cut off the cage or present offense enough to legitimately have Sean worried. That was when I realized if someone was able to put those 2 things together, maybe 3 things together, they're going to be a serious force for Sean. Look at the way Cheeto was able to do it. He did not fear those feints for a second. He was cutting off the cage and was delivering shots to affect Sean's movement. And I don't care what anyone says, that was not luck. That was a targeted strike and it affected Sean. Then he fouled him to the ground and finished him off the strikes. That fight was not luck. And Cheeto got a lot of necessary respect that he deserved after that. Look at the Pedro Munoz fight. Pedro was not in fear of those feints whatsoever, and Sean had a very tough time getting his offense started up until the fight was stopped. But I'm going to tell you this right now, if that fight went to a decision, I don't think Sean was going to win. I think Pedro probably would have gotten a 29-28 decision. And once again, what happened? Pedro was not in fear of those feints. He was starting to cut off the cage and starting to present offense. Was it legitimate? Was he hitting them with heavy shots? No, but it was the first round and they were just getting into their game, so we don't know how it was going to turn out. And it's for that reason why I'm picking Petr. Sure, he might toss you the first round of the fight, but rounds 2 and 3, he heats up, he figures you out, and he tees off on you. Is he gonna finish Sean? I don't think so. I think Sean's defensively sound and mobile enough to make sure that he doesn't get into serious danger. But if Petr decides that he wants to turn it on and shuts off the lights on him, more power to him. I did not see that coming. Props to him. I just don't see it. I don't see it. I got Petr. I got him. He might even win the first round. I got him 30-27. Following that, we got Gamrot versus Dariush. This has been said that it's a #1 contender fight, and I think this is rightfully so. Dariush has put in the blood, sweat, and tears for years trying to get his opportunity to fight for a title, and this is his last chance, legitimately. He's up there in age. If he loses this one, this might be it. It might be a wrap. There's no climbing up the ladder anymore for him. So he has got to make it happen with this one. A lot of people said that Gamrot probably shouldn't have gotten the nod against Arman Tsarukyan. But that's neither here nor there. He's here in this opportunity, and I'm not so sure that he's going to beat Beneil, however. I think Beneil's game is very, very overlooked just based off of the fact of his age and opponents that he's beaten. But I think this is Benny's time. I really do. I think he's going to get it done, and I don't think that it's going to be as competitive as we think. Sure, numerically it might be a 29-28, but I think he's going to dominate. And opening the main card, we have Manon Fiorot versus Katlyn Chookagian. Let's talk about this for a second. Didn't Katlyn pull out and Jessica Andrade step in to fight, and then Jessica pull out and then Katlyn step in? What was the point of pulling out if you were just gonna step back in? It made no sense, but whatever. They say death, taxes, and Katlyn Chookagian by decision. That's not the case here. Manon has offense and power for her that she's not accustomed to. We saw what happened when Andrade delivered that power to Katlyn. She folded in round 1. But do I think Manon has the stopping power of Jessica Andrade? I'm not so sure, but I think she has a better arsenal of weapons than Andrade. And on top of that, she probably has better movement. So that's why I think that if she plays her cards right, this could be an easy 30-27, if not finish. I think Manon puts it on Katlyn. Even if Katlyn tries to grapple, I think Manon has the ability and anti-grappling to not even allow that to be a factor. But what do you guys think in that matchup? it's time for the prelims. And you already know who I'm going to bring first to the table off the strength, just off the jump of his natural fighting ability. Muhammad Makhachev, one of the most highly touted MMA prospects we've seen in the last probably 3 to 5 years. Look at his body of work in the amateur career. And I know right now there's some names off the top of your head and you're thinking right now who matches up with him prospect-wise. I'm sure there's some people that we can compare to him, but he's at least top 3 prospects that we've seen in the last 5 years, hands down. I don't think Malcolm Gordon stands a chance in this one. This is not me overlooking Malcolm. I understand he has a legitimate chance of winning. I just don't think it's that legitimate. I think Muhammad's ability is just way too much for him. We look at Muhammad's last fight against Charles Johnson, the most decorated flyweight in LFA championship history. That performance was sensational. I think that was 30-27, maybe 30-26. He looked fantastic against a very high caliber and game opponent. I think this one might end up being a finish. I think he might grapple Malcolm to death. I'm sorry. That's just what I think. You can disagree, but whatever. We'll have a conversation after this fight takes place. Anyways, it's been real, guys, but that's the end of this card breakdown. What fight on this card are you most excited about, and what are your picks? I'm Kairos. This is the right time and the right place. Kairos MMA. Kairos MMA. Kairos